Good morning to members of the media and the listening public. Today I wish to provide an update on the Bermuda Immigration and Protection Prohibition of Entry Order 2023. I want to begin by stating that protecting Bermuda's borders and its people is of utmost importance to the government. Bermuda must have a robust system in place to regulate the movement of people into the country. Having a robust system is vital to our shared prosperity and national security. Before I talk about the order, I want to revisit the process effected by the Department of Immigration during the periods of 2011 to 2013. During these years, the department issued Bermuda entry visas. In the main, all tourist visitors listed on Bermuda's Visa Control Nationals list required a Bermuda entry visa or could apply for a visa waiver, except for visitors from Brazil, Russia, India, and China. The visa waiver was not automatic, and a fee of $200 was charged. Persons on a standard work permit who were visa-controlled nationals required a Bermuda entry visa and were not allowed to apply for a visa waiver. Notwithstanding, Bermuda entry visas and visa waivers were being processed by the department, there was still a need for several visa-controlled nationals to also apply for multi-reentry visas to transit the United Kingdom, US, or Canada. Applications for re-entry visas were made through the various missions, embassies worldwide, where their checks and balances were thorough and reliable. On March 1st, 2014, Bermuda's policy changed, and the requirement for Bermuda entry visas and visa waivers were done away with. The change resulted from high confidence in the work of the mission and embassies for multi-reentry visa applications. Commensurate with the new reliance on the work of the missions embassies for all persons who require a multi-reentry visa, that visa had to be valid for 45 days after the expiration of a visitor stay or of the work permit. Equally, multi-entry visa holders had to possess a passport valid 45 days after the expiration of travel and/or work permit. Additionally, officers on duty at the Al Wade International Airport proactively vetted travelers' multi-reentry visas and passports, and if either or both were not in compliance with the policy, travelers were not granted access into Bermuda. It should be noted that the change in commercial air service from London to Bermuda, that is, service from Gatwick being replaced by service from Heathrow Airport, could not have been anticipated when Bermuda changed this policy in March 2014. Although the change opened up a wide and diverse range of flight connections for persons traveling to and from Bermuda, it reduced the vetting and security checks that Bermuda relied upon by allowing visa-controlled nationals to transit through the UK to Bermuda without visa restrictions. This ultimately created a security risk for Bermuda. The order effective on August 11th, 2023 is a means to reinforce the intent of the 2014 policy by ensuring that security and vetting takes place before an individual arrives in Bermuda, and by ensuring that tourists, visitors, and residents of Bermuda have ready access to the US, UK, and Canada through commercial air service. Tourists who are impacted by Clause 1 of the order must possess travel authorization in line with Clause 3.1, namely that they may not enter Bermuda unless they have travel authorization to enter and re-enter Canada, the United Kingdom, or United States, such travel authorization being valid for a period of 45 days from the date of intended departure from Bermuda. If they do not comply and arrive in Bermuda somehow, they will be refused entry. I also want to provide clarity with respect to work permit and permanent resident certificate holders. First, work permit holders. Persons who are already resident in Bermuda who traveled outside of Bermuda prior to August 11th, 2023, and have not yet returned and possess a valid standard work permit which does not contain a visa condition will be permitted to re-enter Bermuda without the requirement to comply with Clause 3.1. That is, they do not need to provide proof of travel authorization to enter Canada, United Kingdom, or the United States upon arrival in Bermuda. Persons who will be first-time residents of Bermuda who possess a valid standard work permit which does not contain a visa condition and was issued prior to or after August 11th, 2023, will also be permitted to enter Bermuda without the requirement to comply with Clause 3.1. They do not need to provide proof of travel authorization to enter and re-enter Canada, the United Kingdom, or the United States upon arrival in Bermuda. Sponsored dependents, as defined in the Department's current work permit policies, who possess valid permission to reside in Bermuda and who are attached to one of the foregoing scenarios will be permitted to re-enter or enter Bermuda as applicable. Persons who obtain a short-term work permit, emergency included, whether issued before or after August 11th, 2023, must comply with the Clause 3.1. Without question, they must provide proof of travel authorization to enter and re-enter Canada, the United Kingdom, or U.S. upon arrival in Bermuda. And the travel authorization must be valid for 45 days from the date of intended departure from Bermuda. If they do not comply, they will be refused entry. Second, permanent residence certificate and residence certificate holders. As with already resident standard work permit holders, PRCs and RCs, who traveled outside Bermuda prior to August 11th, 2023, or after, who are affected by Clause 1 of the order, will be permitted to re-enter Bermuda without the requirement to comply with Clause 3.1. They do not need to provide proof of travel authorization to enter and re-enter Canada, United Kingdom, or United States upon arrival in Bermuda. These changes directly align with Strategic Priority 3 of Bermuda's immigration reform to strengthen the enforcement of laws and policies. As stated in July of last year, the government sought to review current compliance framework to determine if there is a need to increase the deterrence set out in our laws. What has been made abundantly clear in recent weeks is that there was insufficient clarity for the public regarding which nationalities were visa-controlled nationals. The published order now clarifies that concern. Visas are not a perfect solution to the problem of border security, but they are an essential tool that governments can use to protect their borders. If the public has any questions regarding the order, they can contact the Department of Immigration at 30 Parliament Street or by calling 294-8093. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Just to clarify, was this change with regard to visas prompted by the change in airport in the UK?
The change in airport in the UK did create a risk, but there were other scenarios also that created a risk. For example, Bermuda relied upon vetting for the United States, Canada, and the UK to maintain our vetting for our border policy. However, you have now direct flights from different jurisdictions, which means that the vetting that would have naturally taken place through commercial flights are no longer taking place.
So you're talking about, is this referring to some new charter flights?
No, it's not new charter flights. So you also had private jets that were utilizing traveling from certain destinations to Bermuda. That created a risk. Then when we had queries regarding the clarity of who was on the visa control list, even by the media, they were asking, were certain nationals on the visa control list, it wasn't clear to the public. The only way we can make it clear to the public is to publish a list so that everybody is abundantly clear who falls in those categories. But yes, when the airports changed from Gatwick to Heathrow, Heathrow then allowed persons, visa-controlled nationals, to transit through Heathrow without a visa. So those persons were not permitted to enter the UK, but they were allowed to transit through the airport airside and enter into Bermuda.
And just taking it from the point of view of tourists, PRCs, etc., how will this be more laborious or costly for people travelling, or is it quite a simple process?
It's quite in alignment with the intent of the policy that was put in place in 2014. We were asking individuals to secure the requisite travel documentation through the United States, Canada, or the UK to enter Bermuda's territories. As it pertains to work permit holders, PRC holders, we're satisfied that we do a sufficient level of vetting when we approve those applications and do the necessary police checks for those individuals to be given special permission.
Just to clarify, will this or will this not cost any more to the traveller, be there PRC, be there work permit holder, be there tourist? Will it cost any more to the traveller to do this?
No.
My final question was, you said PRC holders before the date need not apply?
Before or after?
Before PRC holders,
correct.
This does not apply to?
Correct.
That's all. Thank you. That's all I asked.
Thank you. Questions from Sarah.
Morning. Will it cost anything extra for the government to implement?
No.
No? Okay. So I don't know if you'd be willing to answer a few questions about the immigration reform that's come out of the economic development strategy. But you've talked about how to change the eligibility for a PRC status. Is there any more detail you can give on that plan at this stage?
Not at this stage. I would say that it is an action item in the economic development strategy, and as a result of that, we will develop a policy that we will put out to the public as pertains to what the government intends to do in that particular area.
Are there any considerations you might be able to share that are being talked about at the moment? Not that have been decided on.
So I can tell you what we've received from consultation with the public and various stakeholders is that the 20-year provision falls outside of what they will consider to be an effective range to be able to ensure that they secure the labor that they require. And so because we live in a global environment, employees have a decision whether or not they're going to work and be domiciled in Bermuda or other jurisdictions. One of the main factors they consider is their future life in that jurisdiction, whether or not they can get some sort of permanent residency. If you look at Bermuda's permanent residency requirements, I've stated this in the past, and I'm comfortable stating it now. Our 20-year provision is extremely conservative and falls outside of the provisions that other jurisdictions have, and so we'll be reviewing that.
So reviewing it to possibly reduce it?
Possibly, yes.
Yeah, and how about the financial cost for obtaining PRC? Is that being reviewed as well?
That hasn't been discussed yet in terms of whether or not we'll be lowering the cost.
That currently is, what, $10,000?
Yes, $10,000 for persons who have been here for 20 years, $10,000 for persons who have been here for 15 years, which would be parents of Bermudian children. And then the children of PRC holders, that's under $4,000.
Yeah, there have been some comparisons drawn since the release of the information on the people section about pathways to status. Would you like to address those comparisons? Would you agree there's any similarity between what you're doing and what the OBA
The Bermuda government has no intention to progress any initiatives that leads to status.
Status, yeah.
And so that is a clear distinction.
Yeah.
We are happy with providing greater levels of security and residency, However, we are not made a political decision to move forward with any sort of resident status requirements for
Bermudian
individuals.
status. So is any consideration being given to Bermudian status and changing the current laws on how you can obtain that and who can obtain it?
Not at this time. What is actually being considered is what was outlined in the economic development strategy as some of the immediate changes. We do have the Immigration Board who will be primarily focused on reviewing the Bermuda Immigration and Protection Act and providing strategic recommendations to the minister.
Okay. So you're looking to increase the population by 8,400, approximately, a little bit over, in the next 5 years. How many more jobs are going to be required to be able to accommodate for that and make that feasible?
So to make it clear, we want to increase the working population.
The working population,
And
yeah.
so that is also made up of Bermudians who are currently outside of the job market.
Yeah.
And so I want to make that abundantly clear that we just don't want to bring in 8,000 individuals, but we want to expand our working population. The early age dependency ratio, that target will move as we revise those numbers. And so
Sorry, the what
the
ratio?
early age dependency
Yes,
ratio was the
okay.
ratio we depended on to get to the 8,400. That target will move as our demographics and our population change. At this point in time, what we want to do is we're aspiring to get to that particular number as that being our current target for 2026. But along the way, we will access the level of economic activity, which will lead to greater jobs in the economy, and then those jobs will be filled by workers. That is the entire reason why we rolled out the economic development strategy. The economic development strategy was specifically designed so that we can have broad-based economic activity across multiple industrial sections, which will increase jobs, and then we can fill those jobs with workers.
What would you say currently is the biggest barrier under the current regime to increasing population, the working population? Some of the major
The
issues that-
greatest barrier would be the creation of jobs. And so, as long as we're creating jobs, we can trend along with meeting our targets. If we are not creating jobs in our economy, and we see that our economy is shrinking, and the number of jobs in our economy is shrinking, that would create a level of concern for us.
Okay, thank you.
One more question from Hayward.
One follow. Staying on the issue of increasing the working population, previous job numbers, at least last year, it looked like the growth, the number of jobs were disproportionately within the IB sector compared to the rest of the economy. And obviously the new economic development strategy places a lot of focus on international business and growth in that area. Do you see international business as being the area where a lot of those 8,000 jobs will be, or can you list where you think we'll really see that growth, or where you are focusing on seeing that growth?
We have a number of hotel properties which are offline, whether it be Elbow Beach, Ariel Sands, Bermuda Beach, Southampton Princess. If all of those properties are back online, they are also not just job creators, but they are also economic hubs. And you can see that in order to service those particular hotels, you would need more jobs within the economy. And so we are relying on some of those projects to be completed so that we can see a fueling of economic activity, which will expand the amount of jobs that are required.
That's a big reliance, though, because with the Fairmont Southampton, we don't even know when they're going to break ground on that, and that's at least an 18-month timeline until that opens. Elbow Beach, the other hotels, may not even start until that hotel is open. So by 2026, that's quite a lot of reliance on something we don't know is going to happen.
So it's 2026 is the target, and like I said, the target will continue to move. We want to be trending in the right direction and closing the gap. But I don't believe that those properties will be infinitely closed. And when they do reopen, we have to accept that they generate a high level of economic activity, and as a result of that, we will see an increased level of jobs in our population. And so you asked me whether we're solely reliant on international business. No, the plan is designed so that we have robust job growth across our entire economy. Another area that we would like to see job growth in is in agriculture and fisheries. Right now, the agricultural sector represents less than 1% of all economic activity in our economy. We have huge potential to expand the local production of food in our economy, and as a result, create greater levels of jobs.
Thank you, Minister.
We have one final question in the room there.
I think I recall seeing in the economic development strategy that you're looking to revise the list of restricted job categories. Can you share anything about what might have been discussed so far?
We are currently having conversations with various stakeholders in terms of the impact of that restricted category list. We restrict persons to come here for a one-year period, but in some of those job categories, we see constant renewals where they are unable to fill that job within the by the supply within the domestic economy. Areas like that, then we'll look at the data and then determine whether or not that's an area that remains restricted, or we allow those workers to have longer term permits rather than just 1 year. Certainly, as it pertains to the visa requirements, I want to reiterate that the national security and the safety of Bermuda residents are of utmost importance to the government, and as a result, we will continue to put measures in place that protect Bermuda's prosperity and well-being moving forward. Thank you.